What's going on, brother? How are you?
Very good, brother. How are you?
I am very excited because it's raining cats and dogs in El Paso,
I
Texas.
know. It's a
It's
typical day
crazy.
in May for us, and but I know it's crazy for you. Hey, check this out.
I love it, man.
I'm drinking a little coffee in the cup of success. I'm actually excited about the season. I keep looking at Jerry, and I mean he's been old for a while, but he just really looks older to me, now.
I think we're all excited about the season. I mean, there was a season last year, but it wasn't the same with fans in the stands. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
well,
everything was just
with
so different about it.
with any luck, that offense is going to stay intact. And then they recruited or drafted just basically a whole new defense. So if we can stay that 4 8 plays ahead of the other opponent and stop them from scoring, I think we got us a good season.
Absolutely, man. Hey, but not to change the subject or anything, but actually, what I'm excited about. So, two things, real quick. There was a whole ton of things that happened this last week, but none bigger that I wanted just to take a few minutes to announce that my son, who is also a producer for this podcast and who does all the sound, all the graphics, and you name it. I mean, he's a big part of his podcast, as we've talked
Hmm.
about before. He officially released his first album last
Yes,
week.
sir.
And if our producer can put it up in the screen here real quick. So this album was released. It's available in Spotify. So for if we have any new viewerships or anybody that's listening in for the first time, my son is extremely talented. Of course, I'm his dad, so I'll brag about it. But
I brag
um,
about him too. I mean, we spread the word that it was happening, and we made an
absolutely.
event on
Uh-huh.
in the group to make sure that people knew when it was released. I still have yet. I've listened to the songs, but I still have yet to. Maybe I have bought it if I was able to listen.
Yeah, you
Um,
did. You did.
but
Huh?
I wanted to congratulate him as well and show him off. I love the title. I'm going to put it up again there for just a second in case people didn't notice. Imbécil romántico, and I'm not going to put him on the spot right now, but I one day I want to ask him how
How he
where
can.
the title came from.
Absolutely.
But it's
You
pretty
need
cool.
to. But it's an all instrumental kind of album, and it's one of those that you can listen in while you're reading a book, you're outside drinking some wine, having a
Hmm.
cigar. But it's really good mix of music, and God bless for what he did this during this pandemic. And you
Right.
guys go into Spotify, look him up, and it'll be right there.
Absolutely.
The second thing I wanted to talk briefly about before we get started with our guest today is so yesterday, Claudia Rivera or Saavedra, so she's also our cousin. She called us, or she called me last
Hmm.
night to. So on our last show, we did a giveaway from our guest. She wrote two books,
Hmm.
and she was a winner of these books, and she called in to let me know that she had already finished reading the first book, and that's made an impactful difference in her life. There's immediate changes. Like halfway through the book, she was reading, she was able to make some modifications, start doing some things. I won't get into the details, but those are exactly the type of things that we want this podcast for. This podcast is not for us. It's for you
Right.
guys, for our guests. Any little message or anything that we can plant a seed just like that happened. So I was so excited to get
Yeah.
feedback from her.
Well, and by the way, it's actually the third time we've had a successful giveaway.
Hmm.
If you remember, one of the best ones was another guest we had was a photographer, Francis,
Yes.
and she also gave away, and we had a winner, and that it was literally a free photo session, and that photo session happened to just be in perfect timing for her daughter's senior picture. So guess what
Hmm.
the photo session was about? So that's the kind of thing that we literally dreamed about, that
Hmm.
we could connect people like that, because I mean there's a lot of ways you connect people, you meet on Facebook, but not really the way that we try to connect here, because we are live, we are real, instead of just an icon on a social media page. So that's
Actually,
been a great thing.
now that I think about it, it was the third giveaway because
Yeah.
we also gave away a basket full of goodies, and that was shipped all the way to might have been Dallas too, or
Yeah.
or Arlington somewhere. But yeah, so we've done a few of those, and I just those kind of things are very exciting to get the feedback.
Right.
So today,
Well,
with everything going on, we're very very excited
mhm.
to for our young talented guests that we have today. But before we get there, go
Let's
ahead,
get it
Bruno.
started.
Let's get it
Yeah, let's get
started.
it started. So my name is Javier, and we're your problems.
And my name is Jorge, and opportunities.
We want to welcome everyone tonight. We're always very happy and fortunate that we get to do this once a week when we can, when we're able to schedule things. As always, we have a really really great guest tonight, but we always want to tell people why we call our show "Problems and Opportunities" and why we do this. In the last 5 or 6 years, my brother and I have been through a lot. Not any more, any less than anyone else, but throughout that, we've been fortunate to have mentors and people who tell us, positive things of how to work through a lot of this. And one of them was exactly that. Somebody said, from every problem is an opportunity. And back then, it didn't seem like it made any sense or it was real, because there were a lot of challenges and a lot of problems when you start a business, when you could change like some of the changes we made. So along the way, it started making sense. And that's really the spirit of this show, is to have people come on who are willing to do it, who have found success, who have found opportunities from problems. And that's the message we bring from week to week when we can. And we've had folks from every walk of life. It's not just the businesses we're in, which is real estate, insurance, funeral service. We've had, musicians, we've had coaches. We just had people from literally all walks of life, and we'll continue to look at it that way. So, welcome everyone. We hope you enjoy this episode tonight, and let's introduce our guest, brother.
Absolutely. So I want to start our guest introduction this evening by stating that I think this is the first time that we have a guest that actually admits that doing this is completely out of her comfort zone. I don't know if any other of our previous guests, I'm sure a lot of them felt the same way. But doing this is absolutely not easy. I know my brother has admitted or told the story several times about his fear of being in camera. Before we did the
Yes.
podcast, and even a few times, the first few shows that we did. We're actually now on show number 44, which is very exciting. But so it's not easy, right? But I think that is the that's what's so exciting, that people are willing to reach out. When we're talking, my brother and I are out there talking to people all the time, and when we're networking, and they say, you know what, I want to be in your show. I just want to talk about, this is who I am, this is what I can offer, this is what we can do, and this has been my my story. So
Hmm.
ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome in Mireya Cevallos to our show. Hi, Mireya. Good evening. How are you?
Hey everyone, doing good.
How you doing?
Nervous like crazy, but doing well.
Don't be, don't be.
Well, if,
You
if you
know,
really are nervous, you have a great poker face, because no one we certainly can tell. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show.
Good. Thank
Mireya,
you for
just
having me.
absolutely, just real brief. I know, we posted your bio up in the on our introduction to the show, and the different social media platforms. But there's nothing like our guests telling their story, right? But just really quick to do this intro. You were born in El Paso, but you were raised in Ciudad Juarez. This is also where you did all your grade school and high school. You do have a BA, so you went to UTEP to go get your BA. Which, by the way, I'm also an alumni from Miner Nation. You have two daughters, and you are highly involved with investing real estate, and also have a lot of experience in the corporate world. But Mireya, why don't you take a few moments to tell us all about tell your audience all about yourself.
Well, thank you for having me. First of all, congratulations to your son. That's huge. I am also curious about the title, so I would love to hear more about that.
Absolutely.
um, I guess what I could tell you, yeah, I was born in El Paso, but I was raised in Juarez. It was the other way around. And little did I know that when I was little, my parents were working really hard so that we could be born in the United States. So they were saving money so they could do it the right way. And you know how at that age you're on vacation and go to those really fun big places. Well, for us, it was more, hey, staying around close by and my parents saving so that myself and my siblings would have that opportunity. And they just basically wanted us to have the option to stay in Mexico, which is beautiful, or to make a life, a career in the United States. And who was going to say that, not too long ago Mexico changed, and definitely we were like, oh my goodness, thank goodness that we had that option. So yes, I went to UTEP, and that was my first dream come true. I remember when I put foot in that campus, I was just like mesmerized.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't mention that I went to community college, to Valle Verde first.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, and I was even a DJ there. So
Oh,
Wow.
really?
We're gonna have to make a note of that.
yes, I remember last night I was like, oh my goodness, why am I nervous about a podcast? I just remember I used to be a DJ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'll say.
I was an out-of-state student. I didn't know the difference back then. When you haven't lived in a state at least 12 months, you have to pay out-of-state tuition. So you can imagine the amount of money that was. There was no way I could afford it. And for a moment, I could see my dream crashing for a bit. Well, I found a scholarship, and back in the day, it was called Women in Technology. And I applied for it, and I qualified, and they paid for my basics. And I
Wow.
was able to also do, in addition to that, something of women in technology. So I was doing drafting, and I got to learn how to use AutoCAD in those days.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when I graduated from that, I went ahead and started at UTEP. I actually started in electrical engineering, by the way.
Okay. Wow.
Yes, which I love it, and it's on my bucket list to finish. But I was working full time, and I was working and going to school full time. So I was not able to continue with my electrical engineering. If you know, you have to put in a lot of hours in the labs. So I figured, hey, since then I was already challenging my status quo, because I picked business management and marketing, which is completely opposite from engineering. If you meet an engineer, it's like they can we're completely different. So I thought that mix, if I had engineering and if I had the business management, I was going to be super special, because it's not something easy to do. So I figured, all right, I'll just go ahead and do the management and the marketing. And I did that and started corporate way before that. I've been in the corporate world for about 25 years.
Oh, bless your soul.
Out of those 25 years, 13 years, I have been a recruiter. And out of those 13 years, also, I've been a real estate investor. But when I throw those words, they're kind of big, the real estate investor. So I'm going to say I was in the passenger seat more. My husband was the driver. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So 2 major life events happened where I had to think and ended up in the real estate world with me on the driver's seat. One of the events that happened is I almost lose my husband last year. He almost died on me.
Oh my goodness.
And thankfully he's doing good now. But basically, he had worked so hard, and he had all this future built up for us. But because I had been in the passenger seat, I was not 100% sure that I was going to be able to keep up with his legacy. And that was very scary, because while he was like potentially dying on me, I was having to talk business and say, hey, tell me about the properties, tell me about this account, tell me, trying to soak up as much as I could. And that was really hard. The other life event that I had last year also was a very close person to me who had been in corporate America all of their life. He was laid off when he was about to retire. just like a couple of years to retire. And those events just like hit home really hard,
Right.
because I've been in corporate all my life,
Right.
and I almost lose the breadwinner.
Right.
So I was like, oh my goodness, I need to take the steering wheel and be the driver. So I decided to get my real estate license. And I was already, if you know me or if you knew about me, I am already like my schedule is full.
Mm-hmm.
We homeschool our girls. I'm their
Wow.
teacher. I
Oh my
taught them
gosh.
how to read. Like they're bilingual. When I was faced with that decision, I need to get my license. I was like, I'm gonna get it, but I don't want to waste. I cannot be doing this for years. Like
Yeah.
I've heard some people, because of their personal reasons, they have to do it that way. With me, I was like, nope, I have to be able to do it in a short time. So I was able to get my classes done in 6 weeks,
Yep.
and then take my license, and thankfully get it out of the way on the first run. In August 1st, it will be my first year as a real estate agent with EXP Realty, which is the only brokerage I've been with and just love. And of course, if the audience want to know more about them, I would be glad to dive into that. It's just I don't get paid one way with them. I have multiple sources of getting way when I join EXP. And for me, that was just like a win-win situation. So
Yeah.
now I am working on another position that I have thought about, with my husband. He does real estate investing, and I do the real estate as a realtor. So I just been having fun, been learning a lot, and I'm just here to share how I did that. I learned that first year is super tough as a realtor.
Yeah. Yeah.
which,
That's an understatement, Mireya.
which
Well, and
Do you
by the
know?
good.
way,
Do you
sorry
know?
for
Do
the
you, do you know what the percentage is of realtors that quit after the first year?
If I heard correctly, I saw over 90%.
Yep, it's at 90. It's at 92%. Correct.
Yep.
It Thankfully I did not run into those statistics until I'm gonna say about a month ago. So,
Yeah.
so now I understand why many say ignorance is a bliss. Sometimes
Yes.
you don't want to know those kind of things.
Let me say that to you another way. Ignorance on fire. So one of my businesses is the insurance business, and it's the same thing. About 92, even as high as 95% of people will not survive, and there's lots of reasons for that. None of which are that they're not capable. It's just, as you know, there's just a lot of things involved in that. But one of the early, let's say, early mentors I met, and he wrote a book, and that's what it's called. In fact, I'll share it with you if you want off the show. But that's what it's called, Ignorance on Fire. And it took me this long to understand why, because in the beginning they would tell me that it was better that I didn't know everything. But the way my brain works, that didn't that didn't sit very well with me. But now I understand why. I understand why. Mireya, a couple of things stood out while you were telling us your story. And by the way, you did all this licensing and studying during COVID too for your real estate license. We're never going to forget all that happened in 2020. But one thing that's really important that I preach to people is when you're doing a business, or even if you're not, but when you're doing a business like you say you are, where your husband was really in the driver's seat, you were sort of in the passenger seat, but then, a life-changing event, thankfully, and I'm sorry that, it was, that whatever was going on, but I'm glad, it all worked out. But it's so important for the other spouse to really be up to speed and what's going on and what you have. I mean, something as simple as what's the password to get into the office. I mean, stuff like that. So I wanted you to, we've had another couple on that was also in real estate, and that's one thing that they talked about a lot is how important it is to do things, as a team instead of, there's people that try to hide things from each other. I don't, we've been married a long time, and that's the reason why, because we're not eternal. I mean, some things have
Well,
happened to
yeah.
me as well.
If you try
And
to hide things from each other, you shouldn't be married. Is what
right.
I think.
But in other words, it's so commendable that, I mean, you have, I was looking at your LinkedIn, I was creeping on your LinkedIn page, and I mean, it's a long resume of corporate experience, and you could have just kept, going on with that. But then what I got from when you said that you saw someone lose their job, like literally right before retiring, that message to me is that's how easy something can go away. And so, what have we really been investing our time in? That's not going to go away. That's ours for real. Is that the message, right? When you saw that person lose a job?
Oh, for sure. Because when my husband was fighting for his life, I thought, hey, if I don't do very well with the real estate that he has started, I have my job that I've been so good at for all this many years.
Mm-hmm.
And then with that happened to that person, I was like, wait a second, goodness, I cannot rely on one thing. And
Exactly.
it's really crazy because, I'm married to an entrepreneur just like you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He's always been a business owner, him and his family, real estate. And it didn't hit home even then. Like whenever he's worked for someone is to learn that trade, but then he
Right.
goes on and applies it. So
Yeah.
you would have thought that I would have picked up on that at the beginning of our marriage,
Mm-hmm.
but it is sometimes certain events like this have to happen in order to realize that you don't have control of a lot
Yeah.
of things. And
Yeah.
I did run into
He's
some.
a I'm sorry. He's a serial entrepreneur, is what it's
Yeah.
called.
I was
We're
gonna say.
constantly thinking of ideas, or something happens, and we're like, this could be done this way. And I mean, this is how this podcast was born. I kept thinking about it and thinking about it. I had just had one fear, and that is getting in front of a camera. But then I had a buddy of mine. It's not that I was afraid. I just hated the sight of myself in a camera. And so with that guy, there's a guy long story. I credit him with saying, "You just got to do it, and just do it. I don't care how bad it is." And you should see our first podcast; they were pretty rough, but here we are. Here we are.
Good. I have to say, kudos to you guys for starting something like this. It's not easy,
Yeah.
but I have learned that getting out of your comfort zone is where I've grown the most.
Yes.
So,
And one of the things that I also learned, Mireya, because in July 1st of this year was my 4-year anniversary in the industry, in the real estate industry, and I also had a life changing event that forced me into it.
Mhm.
I could tell you that. So I have relatives in the industry. They've been doing it for almost 9 years now. But we would talk, and they would tell me, but just the idea of how the income works wasn't very appealing to me. So I was like, I love talking to people, I love being around people, and I love, more than anything, I love helping people, right? But it just, I wouldn't take that step. And then when life forced me to take that step, what I wanted to comment is, I think what happens there is that failure is not an option at that point, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
as we talk about the 92% of realtors that don't make it that first year, I didn't know about that either. I didn't learn about that stat till later, but I know that you hear something like that, you absolutely will freak your mind out. But I think, as you were talking about how you came into the industry and things like that, I think we've absolutely found how you transform a problem into an opportunity. And what do you think?
For sure. Yes. It is one of those things where I did not have a choice but to succeed. And I did have something in my advantage though. As I was studying and, taking my classes, I learned that I was really enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
And I would stay up even later at night reading more about it because I was so entertained. So I would
Mm-hmm.
have to say that that worked in my favor. And that's also why I was able to do it in 6 weeks. That's why I was uh, uh, you know, trying to get one book per week. It's just that I
Mhm.
ended up really liking what I was reading, and it was making a lot of sense too, because I had heard my husband doing all these real estate transactions over the phone and meeting with people and going to see properties, that when I was reading it on paper, I'm like, oh yeah, I've been through
Mhm.
that. Oh yeah, I've been through that too. And this, so
Mhm.
when I went to take the test, I had heard that, see, because I like to be ignorant sometimes in some
Mhm.
things, so that so that was one of the things. I had heard that it was going to be the state and the national, and I had heard that the
Mhm.
state was, I call it bipolar, and you know, so I remember when I went and took the license test, when I was going through the state portion, I was like, I remember I went back in my seat like this, and I'm like, oh my goodness,
What is
even if
this?
I even if I fail it, I'm like, I
Uh-huh.
don't know when I'm gonna go back and study,
Mhm.
Yeah.
because I don't even know what this is.
Yeah. What'd
So
you say? What just happened?
yeah, yeah. So when I went back, I just said, okay, take like 100 deep breaths
Mhm.
and focus and use your experience as a real estate investor. Remember your conversations that your husband had and how you bought your first property and your second, and just use common sense.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I did that, and thankfully I was able to get that done on the first run.
Good. Yeah, I have a formula for taking those kinds of tests. For
Yeah.
anybody who asks me, I really do, because it's not about the test is not about knowing your stuff. I mean, of course you want to know your stuff, but these tests, we I had to take 4 tests for my insurance agency,
Oh,
and they're all the same type of test. They're time, certain number of questions, and when you, like you said, when you go in there, as much as you study, you realize what did I just study? None of this is on here. So it's a matter of knowing how to manage the time, how to manage the number of questions you answer, because usually your first thinking is right. So I have a formula for people to ask me, but it's great that you passed the, you took care of it on the first one, because then you don't have to worry about it again. I mean,
Right.
I
yeah.
don't know about you guys, but with us, you pass it, it's done. And you do your continuing ed and all that, but that's nothing.
Well,
It's
we gotta renew every 2 years, but it's not the same.
right.
Hey, Mireya, he's telling you he has a formula, but I'm here to tell you that when I called him the night before I was gonna test for mine, he said just forget everything you studied,
Yeah.
and know that when you go in there, it's you gotta use your time wisely.
Yep.
Know that two of the answers are absolutely incorrect, and just take a deep breath. I think that's
Deep
his
breath,
formula. But
well rested. Well, it's a little more than that, but yeah, that's basically it. Just trust what you've done for the last 6 weeks, and it really is going to be fine. It's just the part about people, the mental part. You get into this loop that you can't get out of, and then you run out of time, and then
yeah,
I think most people could have
yeah.
passed it, but they just get in that. Mireya, you've kind of told us how your story. You're raised in Juarez, which, uh, I was born like you. I was born in El Paso, but lived in Juarez the first 5 years of my life. So came to El Paso when I was 5 or 6, when my brother was born, and I didn't speak a word of English when I when I walked in my first. I think it was kindergarten or first grade. But aside from that, aside from all that obviously you conquered, went through high school, but you came in at a later day. But what obstacles? Talk about what it was like to come as an adult to El Paso, and then right away you're going to a humongous, beautiful university. By the way, I went there a year, so I'm sort of an alum. But talk a little bit about that.
For me, I had been dreaming about that for so long that when I went, I felt right at home. And I started corporate America, and with them, I moved to Columbia, Missouri. I
Hmm.
lived there, and I also lived in Oklahoma, in Edmond, Oklahoma. If you're familiar with Columbia, Missouri, it is mainly, white predominant. So I remember before moving over there,
Mhm.
a lot of people told me, "Hey, you're gonna be in culture shock," and I was
Hmm.
like, "Why?" But
It's the
when you've
Midwest.
been, I
Mhm.
had not been out there, and even less to live. So I had constant feedback telling me, "Hey, Mireya, prepare," from my coworkers. And when I went and lived over there, it was completely the opposite. I was so welcome. I created I have a new aunt over there. I had a new grandma over there. I had new cousins over there that are not blood related. I mean that they became so close friends to me. I mean, one of them was my one of my what do they call them here? Bridesmaids. Yes, one of my bridesmaids in my wedding. So I would have to say, did not go through that challenge. I was
Mhm.
very blessed that the places where I moved to, the communities were so welcoming. I will. I did get homesick. I'm a Mexican. I'm used to carnes asadas. I'm used to
Hmm.
cookouts every
Oh
weekend. I'm
yeah,
used to my mom
people being
calling me, "I made
outside.
your favorite dish."
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes,
Hmm.
and I did not have that. So whenever I would have neighbors go and visit me, they knew that when they left, I was going to go, like I was going to feel blue. So my friends,
Hmm.
what they would do is they know I love movies and they know I love food. Who doesn't?
Mhm.
So when my parents would leave, they would come and they would be like, "Come on, let's go watch a movie," and they would help me out getting
Hmm.
that, spot. So I would say I was very blessed. And here in El Paso, when I came to that big university, that was just my dream come true. I was not
Right.
intimidated. I had to go to community college first. And to me, that felt like, oh, I wanted to go straight over here. But
Right.
it only made sense,
Right.
to take baby
Sure.
steps.
Yeah,
And
Sure.
that only helped it make, better. I had taken the TOEFL also. I was ready to
Mhm.
go straight to UTEP. But
Right.
that helped me taking the baby steps, I would say,
Hmm.
to not feel like I was not part of that environment.
Yeah. My wife and I moved here to Dallas Fort Worth. We were 19, and we were married. So very young, but from El Paso, and our families from Juarez, everything, the same. But the difference from you went to the Midwest, we came to basically a giant melting pot. I mean, we started meeting people from literally all over the world, and all kinds of faiths and religions and customs. And I mean, it took us a while to understand, and it was a lot of everything. We definitely didn't have a lack of entertainment here, but it's the same thing. You're used to the different things that you do with family and all that, and all that was gone.
I would add that when I moved to Colombia, um, in the building for the corporate company I work for, I was the only one that spoke Spanish
Spanish.
at that
Wow.
time.
Yep, I
And I
believe
was like, okay, this is odd. I'm not used to
you.
this. And then also, when I moved to Oklahoma, I was so entertained with the fact that, I was used to just seeing Mexican people,
Yep.
people from Mexico.
Yeah.
Right.
And when I moved to Oklahoma, oh my gosh, they have people from El Salvador. They
Hmm.
have people from Guatemala, from Ecuador, which, by the way, that's where I met my husband. And
Hmm.
Oh,
he's from
okay.
Ecuador,
Okay.
from
Okay.
Quito. And
Mhm.
it's an amazing story, that one itself as well. Mom from Texas, dad from Quito. My husband was born and raised in Quito. And I had not been exposed. And just learning their cultures, like their food,
Hmm.
the way they like to dance, the way they speak, like the lingo is completely different. I got to meet people from Venezuela.
Hmm.
It was just, I would say it was one of the best times of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's so
Oklahoma
awesome.
is.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Oklahoma is only. I don't remember where. Did you say Edmond? Yeah. So I know Oklahoma City is maybe 2 hours from where I live. And that's if you get through the casino traffic, quickly. But I don't. So yeah, in other words, I've been to several parts of Oklahoma a lot. Yeah. Um, I know coming into kind of the third part of this, specifically the name of your company, which we've been scrolling, although it's not on here, but I know in your biography you mentioned attending an event. You kind of talked about why you got your license and all that, but I wanted to know, and I hope I understood that right, what event that was that kind of pushed you, or maybe threw you into the real estate.
You mean like the 2 life events that I went through?
Okay, so that's what it was. Okay.
Yeah.
Then you talked about that. Okay, yeah. So I just wanted to make sure, because sometimes people have a moment, which you did, and that's what sends you over to the next, what you did, makes you, sends you into your uncomfort zone, and then that's where change and greatness happens.
Yeah, it was like I was slapped around a couple of times so that I understand I needed to look into it.
Well, and asked a better way, Mireya. Did you have even a remote idea you were going to be in the real estate? Like when
No,
you first came to El Paso?
no, 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 not at all. Even the position that I took within the corporate world, which is recruiting,
Uh-huh.
that was out of my comfort zone. I was used
Mhm.
more to the management side of it, where you're in
Right.
4 walls and where you have this team, and so that was another thing where I got out of my comfort zone in recruiting. I'm able to knock on doors. I'm able to
Mhm.
do cold calling. I'm able to go and walk up to a stranger and just start talking to them. That
Mhm.
was no way me back in the day. So when I came to El Paso, even when I married my husband and I knew he was an entrepreneur, I was like, you do that. Okay. You're good
Yeah.
at it. I like that you're the one doing it. I have done that, going out of my comfort zone in such a way that I'm knocking on doors, going to small towns, letting them know what I do, meeting new people every day. I don't think I can do it 100% all the time, 24/7. So I go back to,
Look at you now. Wow. That's
I know,
crazy.
right? Never say never.
Never say never.
Yeah.
I learned
You
that.
you're giving sorry, you're giving people a lot of hope, because when you say the recruiting part, cold calling, knocking on doors, most of the world is super afraid of that. I mean, I do it a lot, my brother does it, we do it a lot, but it doesn't mean that we're used to it, or that, I mean, we have to pump ourselves up every day to get it done, or to pick up that, or in my case, put on the headset. I don't, I dial so many numbers that I wear a headset all day, or like you said, just walk up to someone and just start a conversation. Now that part is not so hard for me anymore, because I really enjoy doing
Mhm.
that. I enjoy meeting new people, and you'll see me here. My wife calls me a social butterfly. Um, but here where I live, I just want to be involved. I'm not any better or smarter than anyone. I just like to help and be of service.
Yeah, and what I was gonna add to that is, I think once you get to a point where that's the least of your worries, right? Where you can socialize, door knock, like all the basic things that we do in our industry, or in your case, for what you do for your corporate job. Once you get to a point where that's like the least of your worries, right? Like it's just done naturally, then you're already a step ahead of many other people. You know what I mean? I think that's how I feel about it. So Mireya, do you feel, was there anything, like, what was your biggest obstacle moving over here to the States?
My biggest obstacle moving to the States. If you know me, I'm an introvert. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So by nature. So coming to the United States meant using another language that was not my first language. Even though I have to say, my dad, I love him. He did so awesome in teaching me that language before I even knew I was learning another language. Does that make
Okay,
sense?
it
So
does.
I was a little kid, and my dad was like, "Hey, Medea, instead of watching cartoons in Spanish, he's like, here you go, in English." I don't remember. I don't know if hopefully the audience know them, but like the comic books,
Hmm.
like the Archie and
Right.
Garfield and all of those,
Mhm.
he will get them in English. And then music was all in English.
Hmm.
So the biggest challenge was when we would come over to El Paso, for example, my dad would be like, okay, we're now in the US, no more Spanish.
Oh
And we were
wow.
like,
Wow.
okay. So we would go to the stores, right?
Hmm.
And then we would be like, hey, dad, we want to know how much is this? Or we want to get some chocolate. And he would say, well, go ahead and ask him in English. And I would be like, okay, it's very different when you do it for fun with your cousins, which, by the way, they have their own story. They say I did blabber a lot when I was younger, that
Of course.
I
Of course.
thought I was speaking English, and to them, they
Hmm.
were like, what is she saying?
Well, what
And
language are you speaking?
what, yeah. And I remember one time one of my cousins went
Mhm.
to my dad and said, hey, uh, what language is she speaking?
Oh wow.
And my dad like, hey, she's learning English. And then I heard another time that my cousin was like, we were doing the alphabet, because that's one of the first things that you learn, your ABCs.
Hmm.
So apparently I was taking out a big chunk somewhere in the middle, right? And my
Hmm.
cousin would come and say like, hey, she's missing the OPQRST. And,
You're
and I
missing the
didn't
heart
know.
of the ABCs, right? Uh-huh.
I guess. So I would say the biggest challenge would have been for me the language, because when, for example, Spanish is your first language, that's what you think first. And
Yeah.
then you try to translate it. And that takes a whole new set of time.
Yeah.
So when I first came and I was going to school and doing this 100%, for example, when I was in community college, I did some work study, and it was to pick up the phones, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And I was already challenged with the language itself.
Right.
And when I was picking the phone up, and I had someone calling me from, let's say, Middle Eastern,
Uh-huh.
or someone who had from Louisiana. Have you ever spoken with someone from Louisiana with
Yeah.
the
Uh-huh.
Oh, I
Uh-huh.
remember they were calling me and giving me a whole message, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
To relay.
Hmm.
And I was like, I just missed everything she said. I don't know. Like,
What
I
did I
don't
just
know.
go through? Yeah.
I was like, what did she say? And I did find myself a lot at the beginning asking people, hey, can you slow down a little bit? Can you repeat that again? And as time went on, I would like to believe that I've gotten better at it.
Well,
Sometimes I get stuck, but
well, I'm here. I'm here to tell you, Mireya, that I can tell you're very fluent
Hmm.
with your English, and I
Oh
will
yeah.
see. I mean,
thank
you
you.
you speak it very well, and I think I always like asking that question because I know that it's a big challenge. There's big language barriers, and I think that's a hesitation for many people. But kudos to you, but more to your dad. I mean, for
Hmm.
everything that he did to get you there. That's
Right.
awesome.
I have gone to them to thank them every time. I mean, the fact that they saved up for us to
Mhm.
be able to, be US citizens like
Right.
the right way, that was major. And for them to show us another language that we didn't even know about at the moment. And, even in corporate, I get paid more because I'm bilingual.
Yes.
And I would have never thought that back in the day. And I
Hmm.
asked my parents, of course, and gosh, I'm very thankful that I speak two languages, and I'm not gonna stop there. I'm gonna add a couple more at least.
Good. Yeah.
Very good.
Bilingual has always been a huge asset for us here as well. I mean, sometimes we've been offered things just because of that.
Yes,
So that was
same
definitely
here.
your parents' investment in you all. I'm sure if they were here and I asked them, they would say, that was our investment in you all for their legacy in the future.
Yes, they have
Mi-
said that.
Mireya, when my brother and I were reading your bio that you sent us, one of the things that we really stuck with us was your care slogan for your team, and this is what we actually titled the podcast, right? That's what we titled it. Feel you really believe in it, that you guys strongly follow? I don't know if it's more like a philosophy or a slogan. I call it a slogan, but I think it's more of your philosophy as to how you work with clients. I know and I see a lot of your systems, that are in place are directed towards, getting to this care. How did this work out? Like, what do you think about care? How did you come up with it?
So care team, basically it stands for Cevallos, Arriaga, real estate. So Cevallos, it's my father-in-law's last name, right? My
Uh-huh.
husband now.
Uh-huh.
And Arriaga is my dad's last name.
Ah.
So we are very proud of them, and we figured this would be a way to honor them,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully create a legacy that will transcend and to honor their hard work.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you also knew my husband's father, he's a pioneer. He's an
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur. So the other thing we thought was care. There's something I ran into talking with my husband that he brought up by Theodore Roosevelt, where he said, people don't care how much you know until
Mm-hmm.
they know how much you care. It's un trabalenguas, it's
Mm-hmm.
a tongue tie. So
Tongue
Tongue
twister.
twister, yes.
Tongue twister. Yeah.
yes, tongue twister. I had to read that so many times to fully understand what it meant. And it's true. It doesn't matter how much I know about systems, how much
Mm-hmm.
I can share with you. Unless I connect with you at a certain level and I show
Mm-hmm.
you that I care, you're truly going to listen, to
Mm-hmm.
hear me out. And it's one of the most difficult things to do. So we figured that putting it together, it would remind us every day, all day, that that's what's more important, caring about other people, and all the other pieces will just fall into place.
And they will, and that's what I'm saying. Like, and it's very smart, by the way. I think you
Thank
just
you.
having something like this to lead you with every client you deal with, because as you know, there's a lot of hands in the cookie jar in the industry, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of
Yes.
moving parts and pieces, and there's a lot of people involved, and but at the end of the day, it's our clients, and it's how much we care for them. So I think it's very smart. Mireya, what do you think would be a step beyond what you already do to take this to a whole new level?
I am constantly thinking about that. What I would say on this podcast is to take it to the next level. Um, I'm going to put it on the audience instead and say, I challenge the audience instead to take it to the next step. So, like, if you're slightly curious, if you have more questions about the real estate side, like if you want to become a realtor or how to get your license, even learn more about EXP, the brokerage that I selected and why I selected it, I would say call me, text me. I challenge you to get out of your comfort zone. Don't go through life events to look into something that you have already
Mhm.
been thinking about.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh, but since it happened to me as well, I know exactly the feeling where you're just thinking about it, and until life forces you, you don't really get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like until they come and twist your arm in the
Mhm.
back so hard you cannot just look the other way anymore.
Right. I'm going to give you another tongue twister, Mireya, that I love, and I wish it was mine, but it's not. I'm sure you know who Anthony Hopkins is, the actor. Um, he, Silence of the Lambs, and so many other
I was
movies.
gonna say Silence of the
Yeah.
Lambs. He's
That's
awesome.
that's what that's what everybody remembers him for. But he's done so many other things. But um, if you get to meet him in person, like if you see his little live shows he does on Everybody's Got YouTube or whatever. I mean, he's an accomplished musician. He can play piano. He can compose music. Of course, he's English, so when he speaks and the accent or whatever. But anyway, all that to say that he said, "Today is the tomorrow you worried so much about yesterday." And you have to say it like you said several
I love
times. In
that.
fact, on my Facebook page, I put it up there. Today is a tomorrow you worried so much about yesterday. And
I love that.
the message is that while it's very hard to be always present in the moment, we're present in this podcast and we're having a great conversation, and it's inevitable that you remember the past. You remember so much about what your parents did for you, and then we always worry about the future. But the most important piece of it, the most important piece of life is what we have today. And he said that because he went through an addiction problem, which he was able to recover from a long time ago. I mean, he's in his 80s now. And so, anyway, that's a little tongue twister for you. Mireya, we're always mindful of time, and we've had a great time. We could keep going, I know. But to people who watch and to you, and, you're a very busy person, we want to be mindful of that. So we always try to conclude or summarize the show with you having our guests just leaving our the audience, whoever will watch this now or later, a couple of points. It could be one or two. We call it crystallizing. Just whatever you want that really, important point to be. You already talked about getting out of your comfort zone, but what would that be that you leave the audience with?
I'm gonna share one where I would say, chase your dreams. It's never too late to do that. I'll give you an example. In my late 30s, I started playing piano. And
Nice.
It's something that I wanted to do since I can remember.
Wow.
But for a reason or here or there, it was just not possible. Piano, the cheapest type of instrument you can have, and
Right.
it's not, it was not accessible to me. So I just left that behind. And I come from a family of musicians. Everybody knows how to do something with music, and all my time I didn't, but I just knew that I love piano, and that was another part of my dreams. I have a lot of dreams, by the way. You probably know that
Sure.
right now. But piano was one that, hey, I don't know how to play any instrument. I don't sing, that's for sure. So I remember I shared that with my husband. And when we had our firstborn, he came with a baby grand piano, the little one.
Yeah.
So it was supposed to be for the baby, but I was so mesmerized by it that I would just go to her room and just try to play. And there are some books that come with the piano, and then they come with the notes on top. So I just started playing and playing. So it ended up being something that I was doing quite often. And I guess my husband noticed, of course. And one day he came with a baby grand piano, but this time
Nice.
not the toy.
The
and
real
I
thing.
was the real thing. And I was like, what am I gonna do with that? I don't know how to play. And I also got you a piano teacher,
Oh, wow.
to take private lessons. And I was like, are you serious? I mean, I was so excited, like a little kid. And ever since then, I've been playing piano. I can play Beethoven. Right now, I'm working on a piece that it's Moonlight Sonata.
Oh,
I
wow.
love that. It's my favorite. I just get
It's one of
lost
my
in
favorites
time.
too.
Oh, I just get lost in time, and I learned basically how to a new language, which is a language of music.
Right.
I learned how to read music.
Right. Which is a
and
universal language, by the way.
Universal language.
Yes. So age never stopped me like that in that situation, like in so many others. Whenever I hear people say, hey, I'm already in my 40s, and I'm in my 60s, even people say when they say I'm in my 60s, I'm like, really? Like, come on. At heart, I feel sometimes, and maybe I will behave like it. You might see me like a little kid. So having that opportunity to learn how to play the piano so young so at that age, and be able to do it and enjoy it, that taught me a lot. It was like a new bump in my life, like a new push in my life, actually. That was like, hey, you can do really, like they say it's not corny, but in marketing, the way they say, you can do what you set your mind to do.
Right.
And then and sometimes maybe They need to give you that little push or the access to it. And my husband did that.
Hmm.
And I'm just going to be forever thankful to him because of that. I learned how to read music, and I still play piano, and I still
That's
have
wonderful.
classes.
You
Yeah.
know,
That's
Mireya,
wonderful.
you go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I love that you, because you are bilingual Spanish English, but the same German person, the same Asian person, the same whatever person can read that same sheet of notes. And if there was 10 pianos and everybody's from a different country, they all do the same thing. That's what's amazing about something like music. I was going to tell you a little bit opposite of what you're saying, which is it's never late. Then there's the opposite of people who have done something for a long time, and little corny also, but Tom Brady, who now plays for the Buccaneers in football. I mean, the guy's 43, I think, or maybe 44 now, and
Yeah.
he just keeps going and going and going, like nothing ever happens to him. And of course, there's a lot of work behind that, but the other part of that is, as far as not giving up, and as far as thinking you can't do it or it's never too late. He left a legendary team to go to a team a lot of people didn't even know about, and they went and won the Super Bowl. I mean, it's just it's the same message from him if you read his stuff as well.
It's amazing. What I have learned is that age is in our mind,
Age
you
is
know?
just a number. It's what I learned.
Yes, and it's in our mind because I have seen, for example, in Oklahoma City, I love the indoor climbing. It's
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that I picked up over there climbing. And, when I was doing it indoor, you have to have a belayer, someone that,
Mm-hmm.
will make sure that you don't fall and crush your skull. So uh, I made really good friends, and one of them was actually in his late 60s.
Mm.
We're talking like 10 years ago. And he was like 6'3", 6'4", and we would belay each other. And me seeing him go up 100 feet at that age is
Hmm.
when I first thought, hey, age, just like you said, is a number, and
Hmm.
it's in our mind.
Hmm.
And that's the way our body is going to behave. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because
If
my mind controls everything. Absolutely.
it's so powerful, it
Hmm.
will show. So I usually go by what the mind doesn't know. And I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
I made this operated somewhere, but I always say if the mind doesn't know, the body doesn't show.
Yep, that's good. That's good.
I even
That's
use it
very
for when I
good.
eat chocolate. I'm like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
if the mind doesn't know I'm eating chocolate, the
Yeah.
body will not show.
And really quick to comment on your crystallization, Mireya. I know one time. So I watched a Denzel Washington. He did a commencement a speech for Penn State, I think it was. And just to cut it short, really quick, you said that a ton of people when they die, right around their deathbed, it's all their dreams and goals and wishes that they never brought up to life, right? That it's
Yeah.
important to avoid that so you don't have all these goals around you just looking at you. But it's a great message to give here at the end of our podcast, Mireya. Like my brother said, thank you so much for being with us today. We had a great time. You see, we told you it was about half an hour past an hour.
And we
So
could
I
keep
was gonna say
and
you
we can
guys
keep going.
and we
lied.
could keep going. No, we
Uh-huh.
we feed off the energy of our guests. It's not us.
Yeah,
Oh my
it's you.
gosh.
Hmm.
Then
We
that's a
have had,
good thing, I hope.
yeah, we've had people that it's a little more difficult to expand the conversation. There's no difficulty with you, trust me. So
Oh,
Thank you
this
so
was
much for
this was great.
sharing. I mean, you shared very intimate moments about your life and life changing events about your husband. I'm very happy and thank God he's well now that you guys are doing good.
yes,
Yes,
thank you.
And I'm so excited to have you as my cohort here in El Paso, and let's keep moving
Likewise.
forward. Thank you so much.
yeah, and thank
Thank
you
you for
everyone.
having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, and thank you all who are watching now and who will watch later. I promise you that there's the numbers keep always evolving as the time passes. Not everybody can watch at one time, but as we said, this will remain on the Facebook group and the YouTube channel. We'll share it again. So thank everyone for watching, for spending this time with us. And so with that, for my brother, this is Problems.
And for my brother and opportunities. Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you.